question is, what do we want to put in education so we can change the product or improve the product that we're getting out? That is a significant question about education. And each person has to decide what is it they're going to do to make it better. I thank you. I'm not sure if you want me to Karen to take any questions. If I don't know the answer, I will tell Greg Gelby to get the answer for you and get back to you. Any questions?
I actually have one. I'm a special education student here at ASU. I'm looking forward to teaching middle school special education.
I want to clarify, you're a special education student or a special education major?
I'm a special education major here at.
Because you could be a special educator.
Yeah, I could be. But I'm going to still be a special educator and for First Day, Richmond County. You hear a lot of people talk about, money, not enough money in the classroom. A great teacher can teach with a piece of paper and don't need a computer and all that technology. But the problem is, what I have seen is that there are a lot of great teachers right this minute. And how are you addressing that now in your position? And I ask because I get a lot of students at the literacy center that I tutor and things like that come home with notes from teachers that are just chock full of grammatical errors and misspellings, and it should have been sent to the principal before it was allowed to go home. And
I actually get some of those emails. Copy the letter.
And I think as a parent, I'm a parent of a 2-year-old, and I'm saying, I would not want this person teach, even if they were teaching math, I would still want them to be grammatically correct when they send me something home. And so, how are you dealing with this right now? I understand the need for more body in the classroom, but at what extent when it comes to educating our kids?
You notice Mr. Scott left when you came to this question. Board member. There's two sides of that coin right now we're looking at. One is we're looking at the performance and accountability piece for the quality of teacher that we're having and what we communicate as about the expectations for your performance. That's a piece of it, the current people that are in place. Because we had to do a gaps analysis for the state, and it was some pretty interesting information to show. I'm trying to do this from memory, but last year, there were only, I believe, 15 teachers who were unsatisfactory. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because we would want and expect all the teachers to do well. But the gaps analysis issue is, if your system has 30% of the schools not meeting the expectation, as outlined by NCLB, how can you only have something like 0.6 of them labeled as unsatisfactory? So the quality of performance assessment has to be changed and improved. And performance assessment doesn't have to be a negative thing. It doesn't mean that everyone's got to be fired. But if you don't assess the performance, how do you tell them what to improve? So I want you to make that connection. It doesn't mean we're talking about getting rid of people. But the first step is assess the performance and give them help so they can improve in the area. So that's where we're lacking a little bit. Okay? And we found the same thing exists with principal accountability. The other side of it is not just getting a warm body. Such things as when we recruit, so we're not waiting until the last minute. The NAACP meeting I was in at last night, I shared with them that no matter how much people think that teachers or whoever makes a lot of money, you got to base it on the market value. You can't ignore that. If we're not competitive in the market with salaries, guess what? Anybody who's good at it is going to go somewhere else and get a job. And that's just human nature. I don't know why at times that people think that it's different for an education. Now the difference is educators won't be making these top corporate salaries. Because, and I'll use myself an example. If you stack us up being the fourth largest employer, the people who are above me make my salary like a pittance. Absolutely pittance compared to what the compensation package. But I didn't get into it to be the focus.
Well,
and I don't think anybody in the classroom did that.
Anybody that's educated, they certainly didn't get into it for the pay.
Where else could you go and say that when you go out and tell people, I want to give you 30 children to work with for 7, sometimes 8 hours a day. Most people tell me, I'll just deal with my one, and I'll leave it at that. But then we also make it hard to get quality teachers because everyone wants to come in and tell them how to do their job. And not demonstrate the respect that goes with the training that's supposed to go behind it. So they resent it.
I had a teacher one time tell me the best thing that I could ever do in my classroom was to shut the door and not. You know, I mean, of course you have to teach the curriculum, and those are the things that the children need to know, but shut the door, don't let them know how to teach.
And I just ask you have to start with the curriculum. I want you to teach them what you want.
And I think it's important too for like the non-education people here to understand AYP is such a big deal when people look at numbers and where they're going to live and things like that, but what the average person does not understand is that special education and things like that are factored into AYP. And when you take a child who is mildly disabled, who functions at about a 75 to 80 IQ, and who research has shown it's going to max out about a 6th and 7th grade education, then
it doesn't take that into account.
And people don't take that into account that, you know, they're being tested on a 10th grade level because they have a 6th grade, or they have the ability to reach about 6th grade education. And so, you know, people over-rely on those factors far too much. They don't look at the whole picture of who's actually factored into that picture.
I mean, a big part of why many of our schools didn't make it to second level was students with disabilities. Now, that's a small number. We got another number that could be making progress that we have to improve. So we don't want to discount that also. But it does not recognize enough of the growth process with that student that may be very significant for the individual child. So you're right. Yes? Work here, you can. Mr. Scott lived through it. That's kind of some of the mentality, right? But the question has to be asked, if you got to increase salaries to be competitive, okay? Gasoline is going to go up. It has been. Maybe it'll level off, I don't know. But things, books, you have to cycle them in and out on a regular interval if you want to be up to date in the curriculum and resources that support it. And the books don't stay the same price every year. I mean, as they revise them, they become more. Then the question becomes, should the answer be, the response be, responsible increases based on specific expectations versus no increases? And I think we have to do a better job of marketing and communicating that process. How do you keep a flat budget with costs going up? How do you get more revenue? I mean, if you don't increase, we can't control what the state does. The state has 151 school districts that they're trying to fund. Because the federal government, the Constitution says education is a state function. Now, not only are they trying to fund education, but they're going to try to fund health care, which is a big debate going on, especially with children. You got the issue with roads and all that other stuff that becomes, so you have a pot of money that is pulled on by a variety of sources. And what bothers me, I think, while I looked at it, is people often are comparing us to Columbia County. Well, if you're going to compare us to performance in Columbia County, can I get the same resources per child in Columbia County? Their local funding in the 2006 data was